Welcome everybody to the first episode of the Company Program Podcast. I'm super excited, and you should be too. You're about to learn a lot and definitely do some really exciting things. If you think about it, in just 18 short weeks, you're going to be a stronger and smarter person, and that's definitely something to be looking forward to. Students, before I continue, I really just wanted to say something. I admire each and every one of you that's watching this right now. You took the first step towards something. You decided you wanted to stand up and be somebody. That alone is a tough thing to do and a huge accomplishment. So really, you should be super proud of yourselves. Anyways, what's on the agenda for this week? What can you really be looking forward to the first company program meeting? This might seem kind of obvious, but honestly, I can't emphasize how important it is for you to get to know each other. These are the people that you're going to be surrounded with for about 18 weeks, so it's important that you get comfortable with each other fast. I would also encourage you to get each other's contact information as well as the mentors so you can communicate outside of the meetings. This is important for in the future if you might be late for a meeting or you have a different commitment and you can't make it to a specific day. Also this week, you're going to be creating your value proposals. Now, you're so early in the game, obviously it's the first week, so what I really encourage you to do is scatter a bunch of seeds and then choose which one you want to nurture and grow. I'm basically just saying that you should explore a bunch of different ideas and then finalize it a little bit later. Now this next one is less of a to-do item and more of a recommendation from me to you. Students, I encourage you to ask yourself why you joined the company program. Think about it and be honest with yourself. Each of you is sitting here for a reason. You want to learn something, you want to gain a certain skill set. Whatever it might be, there's a reason you're here. And what I recommend for you to do is write that down on a piece of paper. And I'm not kidding when I say that. When you put pen to paper and actually write down your goal, then you take the first step in starting to make it a reality. It's out of your head and onto something physical in the real world. In terms of what concepts you should be familiar with at this point, there's only one, and I already mentioned it. That's called the value proposal. Now, if you don't know what that means and what that process is, don't worry, don't panic. There's a video here that you can watch to get a basic understanding of what a value proposal is. Better than that, talk to your mentors about it. Ask your peers because this is something that you're going to be collaborating on during the first meeting. Next up, we have our interview segment. This week, I had the pleasure of talking with Steve Mesler, who's a gold medal winning Olympian and is currently the CEO of Classroom Champions. Steve has a unique perspective on teamwork that is definitely relevant to all of you as you walk into this first week. Students, listen closely because you're not going to get this unique wisdom anywhere else. Thank you so much for joining us today. Steve, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. How's it going, Josh?
Pretty good. So I'm just going to jump in right here with the interview. And I was hoping you could start by sharing a little bit about yourself, right? So could you please tell the students a bit about your journey, all the way from starting as a gold medal winning Olympian to the work you do today with Classroom Champions?
Sounds good. Well, first of all, everybody, all the students out there, so glad that we can spend a little bit of time, kind of together. So I am from Buffalo, New York originally. So I'm an American that moved up here in 2003. When I was your guys' age, I was doing a lot of the same things. Didn't necessarily have the entrepreneurial spirit that you already have in me yet. That took a little while to gain a hold in me later on in life. But I grew up playing soccer and running track. And for me, my path was track and field. I went to University of Florida on a scholarship and then track into bobsled. And I moved to Calgary in 2003, moved up here by myself. My coach was up here, lived in a basement suite, bought a $300 Mercury Topaz car, which isn't even a car that you guys would know about at this point anymore. And my path, that was my beginning of my path ultimately to going to 3 Olympic Games and winning gold medal in 4-man bobsled in 2010, which was an incredible experience, but also had a lot of bumps along the way. I mean, 2006, we were supposed to medal. It wasn't about if we were going to medal. It was simply what color medal we were going to get. And we got 7th place. And it was really, really difficult for me. Struggled with that a lot, but ultimately learned a lot about team at that point. We had a team that didn't really gel all that well together, which on a day-to-day basis, honestly, Josh, day-to-day basis from a team perspective, it's, whether you get along and all of you get along on a day-to-day basis, it's generally neither here nor there. You can always make your way through, but it's when the screws tighten, it's when the things get important. And that's what we weren't ready to do in 2006, the Olympics. So I made it part of my mission going into the gold medal year in 2010, to make sure that we had a team that could gel and be cohesive. Because ultimately, as a leader, and as an entrepreneur and as a business leader and a business owner, like, your responsibility is to make sure you and your team are ready when you need to be ready. And for us, that was a lesson learned the hard way, but then it was a lesson learned, the glorious way, by seeing all those things come together and then winning gold in Vancouver. And the Canadians were bronze in that race. Really good friends of mine and training partners, having lived in Calgary, for most of my career. And then we started Classroom Champions when I was still competing. And we didn't start it as a business, honestly, which honestly is like the way a lot of the best businesses out there started. They just started from an idea that somebody had because they wanted to change the world. And then they found the business model for it. And sometimes those things happen quickly. And for us, it actually happened pretty slowly. And I know we'll get into that here shortly. But ultimately, Classroom Champions, we built it here in Calgary. And we now work with Classroom Champions' mission is to empower kids socially, emotionally, and academically through the journeys and mindsets of world-class athletes. So we support schools. We support schools to bring in social emotional learning through the eyes and lenses of Olympians and Paralympians. And we've had over 200 athletes and NFL players and NHL players and NCAA student athletes volunteer to be part of passing on that knowledge about goal setting and feedback and perseverance, all the things that you guys as business leaders are gonna need when you do that. So that's what Classroom Champions is about. And to this day, we have about 100,000 students in our day-to-day general programs across the U.S. and Canada. We reach about 5 million students across the U.S. through partnerships. And we partnered with the NHL this past year to work on social justice and anti-racism work as well. So we've been able to use the lens of sport to help students and help teachers change the cultures in their schools.
That's incredible. This is the first time I realized that there was an overlap period between starting Classroom Champions and still being a part of the Olympics. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Barely.
Yeah, just a little bit, but still. And I love the point you had about, it doesn't start with a business model, it starts with an idea, right? And I think that's an important lesson for all the students watching this, right? You don't need to walk in with any knowledge. All you need to do is take the first step, which if you're sitting here today, you already have, and then that's where the work begins. So
absolutely.
Good job on all of you for really stepping out of your comfort zone and taking that first step. And Steve, I also, I liked that point you had at the end there about, looking at things through the lens of sport with Classroom Champions. And I wanted to ask for you personally, obviously with sports, there's, as you mentioned, a lot to learn about teamwork, a lot of lessons there, quite a bit more intense than maybe some other teamwork activities that you do in school and such. So when you were at that point where you work, at least in the beginning with your work at Classroom Champions, how did you translate that sports teamwork experience to a kind of business organizational teamwork?
That's a great question. It takes you a little while to figure out. There's a lot of things in sport that do transfer over really well, and there's a lot of things in sport that don't. So I think for me, I spent a couple of years kind of parsing those things apart together and then apart and figuring out what did and didn't work. I mean, ultimately, culture is, to me, number one. So the part about sport is, and if any of you guys have, guys or girls out there have done sports before, you're in an environment, you're all trying to do the same thing. You're all trying to win the game. You're all trying to move the ball forward. You're all trying to execute on something. And I think that mentality from sport is such a perfect thing. And you as a leader, you're the one who sets that tone. You're the one that helps set that North Star. So in bobsled, the North Star was winning a gold medal. And then all of the things that went into getting to that North Star were making sure the sled, had all the things it needed, making sure our runners were polished, making sure we were healthy, making sure we had been sleeping, nutrition. You have these building blocks that are underneath the main goal. And I think for me, it took me a little while to realize that you really have to set your ambitions and have a place that you're going. And so I think that's, to me, the number one thing that sport transfer over has is understanding what a goal is and explaining to and working with your team and listening and understanding that like your job as a leader isn't to have all the answers. Just like in sport, my job wasn't, as the athlete, wasn't the one to have all the answers. I had a coach, I had teammates, I had a therapist, I had all these people around me that were part of that process. And ultimately, I was the one that had to go and put my hands on the sled. So I was accountable to that. And that's just like being a leader. So I think that's, the number one thing for me is how you treat your culture and how you understand, where culture comes from. And that's, that's the really exciting thing for you guys is you're going to get to learn that. And, if I'm you, I would observe and talk to people and ask them not only like what it means to build a good culture as a leader and build a team, but also like, what does it mean not to do that? We can learn just as much from our mistakes and other people's mistakes as we can from their successes.
And that's very true. Yeah, great answer. I agree with you that especially students, if this is your first time participating in the company program, you're going to make mistakes. It's just inevitable, and that's okay because there's a lot of learning opportunities through those mistakes. So thank you for imparting your wisdom there, Steve.
And I would say also, Josh, out to you guys there, which is like you've got to be start to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Start to understand that. Think about anything you've learned how to do in the past. This is no different. What you are doing right now is these are skills that you're going to learn. The first time you kicked a soccer ball, probably couldn't kick it very straight. The first time you played clarinet, you probably couldn't, create good notes in music. This is going to be that. So understanding that that's part of the process and start understanding that part of the myelination happening in your brain and your system is going to be struggle, and struggle is good. And I think it takes a long time to get there to realize that. So I think if I can also share one thing with you guys out there, it's understanding that the uncomfortableness you feel maybe being in a room of strangers, that's a good thing. That thing in your belly that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's a good thing. So seek that out right now. The younger you are, the more you should be seeking out those uncomfortable situations, because you're going to learn from those the best, and you're going to grow from those. So.
Exactly. Yeah, no, great point. It's a terrible feeling. I'm sure I can still remember, and Steve, I'm sure you can still remember exactly what that feels like. But I think it's an important thing you said. That's how you know you're moving in the right direction. That's how you know you're doing the right thing. Yeah,
I still get those. I'll be in, with, depending upon COVID protocols, but I'll be in New York in mid-September, and I'll have meetings with people that are new to me, that are strangers and are also intimidating. And I get that feeling walking into those meetings still, even at, 42 years old right now.
Yeah, it never quite goes away.
Never goes away. Yeah.
You just have to learn how to kind of get used to it and process it. I think that's a big point. Yeah. That's fantastic. So thank you for that. And you already touched upon this point, and I was hoping you could expand upon this. We talked a bit about culture, and culture is a very important thing in any organization, any group of people. So just jumping back to, again, the early days of Classroom Champions, if I'm correct in saying it was you and your sister who started it early on. At the beginning, it's just you two, but as you grew and as you pursued your mission in a more aggressive fashion, you started to bring more people on board. So what kinds of things did you do in those early days to make the team kind of come together and, like you said, work towards that common goal, that North Star?
It's a great question. And it's such an important part of building a business, which is you can have a great idea and you can be as capable as possible. But Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, these people cannot rely on themselves solely. So you have to understand, you have to understand that you have to build people around you and have them come along with you, because nobody builds a successful business by themselves. They may be the ones we see on television. They may be the ones we read about, but trust me, they have dozens of people that are with them, that they trust. So I think as you're building it, you want to build trust, but passion. I think ultimately that's the thing, is when you're starting to build something and you want people to come on board with you, passion wins out overall. So ultimately, people who bring passion to something, whether it's business, whether it's sport, whether it's anything, they're going to outlast everybody else. So make sure that whatever you're choosing to do in your business, make sure that you are passionate about it. It can't just be something that you think you can make money with. It can't just be something that you think other people want. It has to be something that you are passionate about as you're doing it, because that's going to fuel you into the long nights that you're going to have, into the early mornings. But also people around you will see that. If they see that you're not passionate, they're not going to come along on the journey. So I think that the number one thing I would say to you guys again is bring your passion, be able to explain that to people. Why are you passionate? Understand why you're passionate, so that you can then talk to other people about that, because they're going to find nuggets in that, and they're going to grab on to one thing you say and then they're going to come along on the ride with you. And at first they're going to volunteer. At first they're going to do other things, but eventually, you have to do the same thing as you pay people. So as you bring people on that are paid, especially early on, they also need to be passionate about what you're doing, because they're going to need to go above and beyond. And that's, any entrepreneur out there can tell you, it's an hours long filled journey to get there.
Very true. Trust and passion, those are great keywords to kind of talk about building that team. And students, it's not quite yet, but later on, once you start making your first few sales, I think you can apply a lot of these lessons that Steve is sharing with us to those adventures as well. So, talking about trust and passion, it's a very important thing, but it can be a scary thing to trust people, and it can be scary to share your passion with others, right? So right now, and students, you might be able to relate, a lot of you are walking into a room full of strangers, and it can be a scary thing. What would you recommend for these students do to be comfortable on their first day of company program? What would you recommend for them to begin to trust the people around them and to share their passions?
I think it starts before you enter the room. So I would say being prepared and being ready to be in that room and be successful in the room starts before that. It's practicing the skills that you're going to need. I mean, just like I said, growing a business and being an entrepreneur is a skill, and all those things you're going to learn are skills. So is being able to walk in there the first day and be confident and be able to look people in the eye, shake their hand if that's where we are with COVID, as you guys are there, and being able to do that. So practicing those skills ahead of time, practicing those skills at the grocery store when you're checking out and you're talking to the clerk and you ask them 2 or 3 follow-up questions to get to know them. Practice these things. Even if you're somebody, well, I can't do that, I'm shy. Well, you're going to need a growth mindset as an entrepreneur and as a business starter and a business owner. And a growth mindset means that there isn't, I am this person, so I can or can't do it. It means that I can't do it yet. So remember, bring in the word yet into your daily conversations, bring it in yet into your daily inner monologue, the things that are going through your head. So I think that understand that the things you're doing in the room, yes, today you're hearing me say this for the first time. You didn't do those things coming into this room. That's okay. There's going to be another room like this and another room like this and another room like this. So preparation is going to be your keys to understanding what you have in front of you. So knowing the next meetings, the next pitches, these things are happening. Ask people questions. Ask the adults around you the questions, and the leaders around you the questions about what am I going to be feeling that day? What am I going to be experiencing? And then try to practice those feelings and thoughts.
Very well said. Yeah, I say this so often to the students who've participated in the program. They're probably sick of hearing me say it, but me personally, I'm very shy, I'm very introverted, and even again to this day, I'm not always so quick to just jump into these opportunities. But as Steve is saying, you really just have to do it sometimes. Just go headfirst in and run into the situation, which might make you uncomfortable. And practicing those things even in the little turns of life, like the grocery store, or when you're walking into your classroom, saying hello to your teacher, whatever it might be. Taking those little steps, it goes a long way, because eventually down the road, you're going to look back and those little steps will add up to a lot of distance traveled. So yes, I would recommend taking those steps and pushing yourself out of the comfort zone.
Well, yeah. and it even goes back, Josh, to what we talked about before, that little feeling in your stomach. The more you can get used to functioning with that little feeling in your stomach, the better, which means, again, some of the best CEOs I know are introverts, and they have worked on the skill of being able to show qualities of an extrovert in situations that is important for them. It means they also have to understand how to take care of themselves. They have to go and recharge by themselves. They have to go and make sure that they're taking care of their mental health, because it's a stretch for somebody who is, if you're naturally introverted, it takes more energy for you to be able to interact in that way. And you have to recognize that. And there's nothing right about it and there's nothing wrong about it. It's just what it is. But it's the thing that is right or wrong is being able to get used to that feeling in your stomach and operating with it, which means doing the uncomfortable things of, saying hello, saying the extra few words to your teacher and getting to know them, even if you are uncomfortable doing it. Because understand that when you set your intentions, and I think intentionality is another thing about entrepreneurship that's really important, and it's a really big thing about leadership and teamwork, and that North Star goal is having intentionality in the things that you're doing. So you understand, I'm doing these things for this reason. And if you can do those, if you can set up intentionality in your life, you're going to be really, really successful.
Very true. Intentionality does go a long way. And I think just to add on to that, I have to say that students, if you are at a point where you think you're shy or you're introverted, stop. You got to shake those thoughts of, oh, a shy person isn't meant to do this, or an introvert isn't meant to do this or that. You shouldn't make excuses for, not doing something. You should be intentional, right? Set a goal for yourself and say, I will do this, and I can do this, and I can reach this point. And throughout the company program. Yep.
And I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share with the students there is like we're always working on things. And just like Josh said, whether you're introverted, extroverted, whether you're extroverted, it's really hard for extroverts like me to stop and listen. So that's it. Just like it's hard for an introvert to do the opposite and speak up and go, it's hard for an extrovert to listen. It's a challenge. So I actually have, for me, I sit at my desk and work from home these days, just like most everybody else these days. And I have at the bottom of my monitor, I have stop, let them finish. Use less words. Slow down. I tend to be a critical person. First reaction positive. Don't be defensive. And understanding that our weaknesses can be our best strengths. Because think about all the things you're good at, you'll continue to work on the things you're good at. Think about all the things like me that you feel like you're not as good at. If you can just get those things just a little bit better every day, just slightly better, think about how much stronger you're going to be at all the things you want to do.
Definitely. And no, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think actually seeing that for someone in your position, someone who's accomplished so much, it goes a long way. So it is an ongoing thing. It's continuous. And I'm just going to kind of add on to our conversation here and talk about individual action and just see if you had anything else to say. But I do think you covered a lot of the points. Are there any more specific actions that an individual can take to be a part of a team? And are there any actions that the individual could take to make sure other people are included on the team?
There are, but I would stick to the things we've talked about. I think maybe this is part 2 in a follow-up, but what I don't want to do is throw so many things at you that you are not prioritizing the most important things. And I say you, the students, not you, Josh.
Of course, I'm learning a lot too. This is great for me, so I'm going to take it too. Yeah.
Well, so I think that, there are endless things we can work on. Like we said, like I showed you, these are things that I'm working on. And I learned these things. How do I learn these things? How do I learn the things that it's taken me a long time to be able to have self-awareness around these things. But being able to we do 360s every year, which is 360 is an exercise that is done where you ask people to give you confidential feedback that you won't see who wrote these things, but you ask people you work with, you ask people you work for, you ask people that work for you, you ask your friends, you ask your teammates, you ask as many people as you can, and a survey goes out, and then that gets aggregated in, and then you get feedback, and you get to learn how do people see you when they don't have to tell you to your face these things. And sometimes that hurts. And even at 42 years old, sometimes that hurts. You see things and you're like, I really don't want people to think that, or that's not what I mean. That's what I think. So I think the last thing I would say, the last one thing to add would be able to ask for feedback, listen to the feedback. Don't try to explain it or defend it, because ultimately what somebody's telling you is their opinion. They're telling you the way they perceive you. There's nothing you can change about the way they perceive you except for changing your actions. There's no words that you can tell them in the moment that will significantly and materially change that. So when you're first hearing these things, ask for feedback, hear it, listen to it. It's actually it's actually a monthly topic at Classroom Champions. We see it as so important. It's right there with goal setting and learning perseverance and learning leadership. Learning feedback, to give and receive feedback, is one of the best things that you can do, and that's how you're going to get better. You're going to be surrounded with people like Josh and other people who can really help you succeed. So being able to hear from them, how you can get better is a huge attribute to learn. As an athlete, I always say I moved to a foreign country, Canada. I moved to a foreign country to have somebody tell me what I was doing wrong 20 times a day. And because I did that, I won an Olympic gold medal. So there's nothing wrong with hearing what people think you need to do differently.
Definitely. Listening is an important part of the formula too. And this is, why you always hear your parents, older siblings, teachers, community leaders, whoever it
Yep.
might be, say that actions do speak louder than words.
Yeah.
And before you take that action, you should listen.
Just listen. Just listen.
Just
And
listen.
again, don't feel like you saw in my notes here. I had don't be defensive. You don't have to defend who you are, but you do have to make changes if they're going to help you get better. If you want to get better. If you don't want to get better, don't change.
Definitely. And yeah, and that just goes back to the idea of having a growth mindset, which, just on the topic of growth, my final question here, Steve, is just to kind of say that, yeah, students, you have taken the first step on a new journey, as I mentioned before. And I'm sure most of you have that terrifying gut feeling. And when I was a student in the program, I remember having that gut feeling too. But it is something exciting, and I promise you, this is going to be a great journey where you're going to learn and grow a lot. So Steve, just to kind of bring it back to the idea of teamwork, can you share some words on the excitement of being on a team and winning as a team?
Oh, I'm so fortunate that I was in track and field, which is an individual sport, and soccer growing up, but my big success came as a track athlete and as a bobsledder. And there's being able to share victory, whatever that is, whether it's a gold medal or whether it's getting your first sale or whether it's buying your second store, to be able to do that when you're in a team environment, there's nothing better, because what good is individual success if you can't share it with people? And so I think for me, that's the value of being on a team. Value of teamwork is that, you have people around you to lift you up when you need it. And as an entrepreneur, you're always going to need it. There is a reason that 90% of entrepreneurs, have mental health challenges and struggles. There's a reason for that, because it's hard. And a lot of us don't find ourselves in a team environment. Everything gets put onto us. So if you can the earlier you can learn how to grow a business through a team environment, the better off you personally are going to be. And I think that so both being in a team environment helps mitigate the downside, the risk of whether it's mental health issues or it's gaps in your business. And on the positive side, what it means to be able to celebrate and win with people that you can look in the eye and say, we did this. We did this together, is a really special feeling.
Yeah, that's amazing. Glory feels 10 times better when you can share it with other people.
Absolutely.
That's all the time we had today with Steve. Unfortunately, some amazing tips and tricks that you heard from Steve's knowledge and experience. So students, walk into that first meeting with confidence, even if you're a little bit scared. Just run into the challenge, and I promise you're going to have a great experience in the company program. That was great. I really enjoyed talking to Steve, and big shout out to him for featuring in our first interview. Just a quick reminder of what you should be working on this week. Talk to each other, get to know each other. Like Steve said, it doesn't hurt to step out of your comfort zone. The other thing that you really should have an understanding of is what a value proposal is, and create at least one draft of it, if not more. The more ideas you have to explore, the more likely you'll find a gold-winning one. Of course, like I recommended before, write down some of your goals. This is more of a personal activity, but I promise you when you do it, it really can be something that enriches the whole process. Students, I know this is a new thing for a lot of you, and I know for some it might be scary, but like I said earlier, showing up and trying is a huge accomplishment. Now let's keep this momentum going strong into next week. I can't wait to see all of you there.